So thank you everyone for joining us today as we unravel the secrets to a balanced and fulfilling work life. In the fast-paced world of work, stress and burnout can easily creep in. Our webinar today is dedicated to shedding light on what burnout entails and, most importantly, how to prevent it. Let me introduce to you our wonderful presenter, Danielle Cameron. Danielle is the acting director of the Hope Learning Center, which is a program run through the Canadian Mental Health Association, or the CMHA Saskatchewan Division. She is a person with lived experience in mental disorders and substance use. Danielle has been with the CMHA for just under 6 years and uses her lived experience to help others to deal with their diagnoses and struggles, as well as give them hope that even though it's dark and lonely, now that there will be light at the end of the tunnel. Welcome, Danielle.
Sorry about that. My mouse was decided that it just didn't want to work. All right. So thank you. Weyburn holds a special place in my heart too. I was actually born and raised there and moved to Regina, moved back to Weyburn, and now I'm back in the big city of Regina. So Weyburn also holds a special place in my heart. So it's neat to see people from Weyburn when I'm doing these things, because then I think and I'm like, do I know that person? And then I get a little nervous. So we're just going to pretend that I don't know anybody. I don't think I do, but if you do know me, yeah, that's great too. All right, so let's get this started today. So this is a part of a larger presentation on boundaries, building boundaries in the workplace. We talk a lot about boundaries and why we need them. A big part of preventing burnout is having those boundaries, knowing what those boundaries are, knowing how to set them, and knowing how to protect them. So we do talk a lot about boundaries in the next hour, but I promise you we will also discuss burnout. And I have a wonderful video by one of my personal heroes, idols. I absolutely love her. Her name's Mel Robbins, and she is just amazing. I love all of her podcasts, her YouTube presentations that she does, everything. So I really wanted to include that. It is about 4.5 minutes long, so it's not a very long one, but I will also share the link for that video if you want to watch it again or follow her or just see what other information you have. So I will not repeat what Nick has said, but this is me in my office. I started my journey with CMHA actually in Weyburn, which was pretty awesome. I started there in 2017 in December and met my husband and moved to Regina. And it just so happened that the Hope Learning Center was opening up when I was moving to Regina. So I didn't have to leave CMHA, which is amazing. They're a wonderful organization to work for. And yeah, it was just perfect timing. So why do we need boundaries? So boundaries are just as important in the workplace as they are in the rest of your life. Without strong boundaries at work, you'll end up burnt out, resentful, and unsatisfied with your job. Professional boundaries can be extremely challenging to small teams or in close-knit environments where people tend to wear a lot of hats. If you're anxious about boundary setting, remember that boundaries aren't just about you. They also help your team by ensuring that you can do your best work and that you're a healthy and calm person to collaborate with. One of the things that we do talk about when we talk about boundaries is if you want people to respect your boundaries, you're also going to respect theirs. So boundaries are really just showing people and teaching people how you want to be treated. So it is very important that we set boundaries as a habitual people pleaser. This is something that has been extremely hard for me in my personal life, but also in my work life. And it takes a lot of practice, and you're not going to, you know, just go from having no boundaries to being a professional boundary setter, implementer, protector. It does take practice and it does take hard work, but I promise you that it is such an integral part of everybody's mental health and well-being. And once you start setting those boundaries, whether it's at work or at home or wherever, you're going to see that your quality of life is going to just skyrocket. At first, it might seem that it's not beneficial. People may have a hard time, accepting those boundaries, especially if you have been a people pleaser or have had weak boundaries before. And what we like to say at the Hope Learning Center is the people that disrespect your boundaries are the people that need boundaries the most. So just a little helpful little hint as well that if people are disrespecting your boundaries, it's probably because they need help setting their own as well, or they have very weak or rigid boundaries. So what are boundaries? There's 2 steps to setting boundaries. And the first part is to establish. So these are the guidelines, rules, or limits that a person creates to determine reasonable and safe ways for other people to behave around them. So when you're establishing boundaries, you may write down what you're feeling, what need needs to be met when you're setting these boundaries, what need isn't being met, what emotions are at play. So just really understanding what you want to establish. And you really want to make sure that when you are establishing those boundaries, when you're thinking of those boundaries, when you're setting those boundaries, that you don't do it out of a place of anger. Boundaries are not there to punish other people. They're there to keep yourself safe. So you want to be calm and relaxed and in a good, healthy place when you're setting these boundaries. Because if you do it out of anger, you could get some really rigid boundaries. And we'll talk about the different types of boundaries in the next slide. But we do want to make sure that we are doing it not out of a place of anger and not to punish others. That being said, the second part is to protect. So what will you do to safeguard those boundaries you set? And how will you respond when someone steps outside of those limits? So while we're not going to punish the other person, we do need to have consequences set. So if somebody does, keep continuously crossing those boundaries, what is that consequence going to be? And it shouldn't be something extremely aggressive. And again, it shouldn't be done out of anger. So when you're protecting that boundary, you need to know how you will respond and what you will do to help protect those boundaries. So boundaries involve both thought, which is the establish, and action, which is the protect. So that first part, again, you're going to put a lot of thought into your boundaries and then put that into action, which is the protect. Another tip, people can't read minds. Keeping a boundary to yourself is not helpful for you or others. So you want to make sure that you're letting people know what your boundaries are. So people might not know, again, what your boundaries are and could inadvertently step over them. It's also important that we let others know what our boundaries are, either ahead of time or when someone crosses over that boundary. So when we talk about work boundaries, that can be something that you set up when you have your interview or when you go in for training. It's just letting them know, these are some of the boundaries that I have. For myself, one of the boundaries that I had to set, just for my own personal life, was that my family comes first. So my boss and I worked together and figured out a plan on how I can get my daughter to and from school every day when she's with me, and how I can still meet um, the requirements of my job. So that was one of actually the first boundaries I set before I knew that I was even setting a boundary. It was just something that I needed. I needed to be able to have that protection in place because my family, my daughter, and my now husband are the most important thing for me. So yeah, just knowing and letting people know what those boundaries are. And lastly, boundaries are mutual. So I had said before that, if you expect your boundaries to be respected, then we must also respect other people's boundaries. So if, you're constantly overstepping someone else's boundaries, it's going to be very hard for them to respect yours as well. So we do want to have that discussion about what our boundaries are and be respectful when someone tells us what their boundaries are as well. So there are different types of boundaries. There's soft boundaries. So a person with soft boundaries merges with other boundaries. They have an incredibly hard time saying no and can easily become a victim of psychological manipulation. An example of a soft boundary would be a friend who is constantly asking for money or help. This may frustrate you, but you do not take action and set those boundaries. You may also try to set the boundary, but in the end are manipulated and made to feel guilty for saying no and back down and do it anyways. The second boundary is rigid boundaries. So this is the opposite of a soft boundary. A person with rigid boundaries are closed off, so no one can get close to them. This is usually the case if someone has been abused. Rigid boundaries are quite harsh and usually done out of anger or frustration. An example of this would be never allowing anyone to get to know you. Usually people with rigid boundaries feel lonely, isolated, and that no one can truly understand them or truly know who they are. Spongy boundaries. People with spongy boundaries are usually unsure of what to let in and what to keep out. People with spongy boundaries, they have a combination of rigid and soft boundaries. An example of this could be how we interact with people. For example, you may have no problem keeping people out of your physical boundaries, such as touching you or unwanted sexual advance, but are prone to emotional abuse and emotional manipulation. So on one hand, you are with physical, you may have flexible or rigid boundaries, but you don't have those emotional boundaries set in place. So you have a rigid and a soft, or flexible and a soft. And flexible boundaries, these are the optimal boundaries. So they are similar to selective rigid boundaries, but the person has more control over what they let in or what they keep out. They're resistant to emotional and psychological manipulation and are also difficult to exploit. For an example of a flexible boundary, we'll take a look at the same scenario as with soft boundaries. You have a friend who is constantly asking for money and for help. A flexible boundary would be telling the person that you value them and care about them and that you will help them when you can, but you cannot always be the person they fall back on, as it makes you feel they're manipulating your generosity. This way, you're validating their needs while also making your needs and feelings heard. So, what can happen if boundaries are crossed? Things might overwhelm us and keep us from thinking and responding. We may have self doubt, and that can be, again, in our personal life or in our work life as well. We trust too easy. We might allow everyone to come into our lives and into our work life without making sure they are safe or have good intentions. They can leave us unprotected, and that can be emotional, mental, or physical invasion from others. They let too much of ourselves out, limiting our level of privacy and sense of self. I know for myself, before I was able to set boundaries, I would tell every person, every employer, right from the get-go, my mental health diagnoses, because I thought that by not telling them, um, I would be deemed a liar. So, um, that was actually really awful, for other employment. I will say that CMHA was wonderful, and telling them about that actually helped me get the job. But other jobs, before that, it was really hard uh, to be trusted. People just saw my mental health diagnoses, and I never lasted very long at any of the other jobs just because I they thought that I was a danger or that I was a criminal because I had a mental health problem. So many other things arose from that. So it was a really hard time, and not something that I needed to do at that time. You can lose control of the direction of your life, increase chaos, distractions, and guilt. Loss of respect for yourself and others can also mean unmet goals, and the stress of chaos can lead to hopelessness, depression, or anxiety. It can also lead to burnout. So, what are the boundaries that we can set at work? We have our physical boundaries. Physical boundaries are some of the most basic and important to establish. Physical boundaries have to do with our body and our space and what you need or are comfortable with physically. Hopefully, you'll find that your physical boundaries are respected at work, but you may still need to assert them sometimes. Not every violation of these boundaries is dramatic or scary, like physical aggression. And it's possible for colleagues to push up against physical boundaries unintentionally without meaning any harm. So, here are some ways you might need to remind people of your physical boundaries at work. I can't wait any longer to take my break. I need to eat and get some fresh air. I won't be able to stay late tonight. I need to rest so I can focus tomorrow. And I'm going to move to the conference room to focus on work alone for a few hours. I can respond to questions when I'm done. That last one has become a go-to for myself. I do live with ADHD, and I am so lucky that now I uh, have an office that has no windows, and if I shut my door, nobody can distract me. So they know at work that when my door is shut, I'm either in a meeting, a presentation, or I'm overstimulated and just need to get to work and focus on my work. As someone just walking by can distract me for quite a long time. So it's just easier for me to shut the door, and then I can focus on my work a lot better than having that door open. Emotional and intellectual boundaries. So when you have healthy intellectual and emotional boundaries, you're prioritizing your feelings, thoughts, and ideas, and giving other people the same respect too. Strong emotional boundaries also mean maintaining a strong sense of self and not taking on other people's thoughts, opinions, or struggles any more than you are comfortable with. At work, this could manifest as keeping a healthy separation between your professional and personal life. Here are a few examples of emotional and intellectual boundaries. I prefer to not talk about my romantic relationships at work. I like to keep some things private. Susan is upset about the outcome of this meeting, but it's not my responsibility to make her feel better. I may not agree with you on this matter, but that doesn't mean I'm ignorant or bad at my job. Priority and workload boundaries. To perform at your best, you need to protect your workload with strong, healthy boundaries. Every day or week, many team members will ask you for help. This is a great thing. They think you're skilled and they value your contributions. But if you accommodate every single request, you're going to end up frazzled and unproductive. And this is where you're going to start seeing that burnout. Remember, you only get so many hours in a week. It's simply not possible to take on everything. And here are some ways to set strong boundaries that protect your priorities. I'm sorry to hear you need this handled so urgently. That sounds stressful, but I have a full plate right now too. So I won't be able to take care of this on the timeline you need. But I'm happy to help out next month once I have more bandwidth. Absolutely, I can take on this project. What other responsibility would you like me to put on pause? I can help out with the task, but since this is my first time tackling it, I will need additional time to complete. Time boundaries. It's very common to struggle with setting time boundaries at work. Time management is challenging for the best of us. So even well-intentioned coworkers might push up against your time boundaries now and then. Without strong boundaries, you will find that whatever time you do have gets away from you, both at work and even on your personal time. Here are some good ways to set boundaries around your time. I'm sorry, but I can't attend meetings before 1 p.m. I need uninterrupted morning time in order to be productive. I've allotted us half an hour for our upcoming meeting. Here's an agenda. So let's get the important stuff out of the way first to make sure we don't run over time. And thank you for your message. I will respond on Monday morning when I return to the office. And I am absolutely guilty of that last one. I will respond to emails all hours of the day, on the weekends. So I've had to set a boundary with myself that I shut the notifications off on my phone, on the weekend and after work hours when it comes to my work email. Communication boundaries. Set clear boundaries around when and how you communicate about work matters. If everyone can reach you however they want, it will be more challenging to make sure your other boundaries, such as around time and priorities, are respected. So here's a few ways to set communication boundaries. I prefer not to text about work matters. Could you Slack me or send an email instead? If you can agree to only call me outside work hours in emergencies, I promise to pick up when you do call and do my best to help. If I have my Slack or Zoom or any other communication status set to do not disturb, that means I'm having uninterrupted work time. I will respond to your message afterwards. So those are just a few quick little tips and things that you can say if you are struggling to set those boundaries more clearly. These can be your kind of go-to boundaries to set. So how can you set workplace boundaries? Discuss boundaries ahead of time. Let people know your boundaries. Again, people aren't mind readers. It's impossible for others to respect your boundaries if they don't know them. Clarify your boundaries up front. When you join a new team or a new employment, ask everyone else about their boundaries. This is a great way to discuss yours as well. Another example will be if you're going on holidays. You can then let everyone know you are completely and totally away from the office and won't be accessing your email or your phone until you're back. Set up structures that support your boundaries. Set up routines and structures that reinforce your boundaries. This helps not only your boundaries, but your coworkers' boundaries become part of your team's normal way of doing things instead of something people need to constantly be reminded of. Some examples. If long meetings tend to eat into your independent work, start every meeting with a clear agenda and assign one person to be the timekeeper to ensure that meetings stay on time. Set up an email auto respond outside of work hours that lets everyone trying to reach you know about your boundary and offer an alternative way to contact you in true emergencies or the contact info of someone else who may be able to assist you in an emergency. Establishing strong boundaries at work can help you perform at your best and benefit everyone on your team. Though it may initially feel daunting, setting boundaries is not selfish. By doing so, you can show up for your team and work together towards common goals. Start by identifying your limits and communicating them clearly with your colleagues and superiors. Be assertive in protecting your time and energy, prioritizing self-care and avoiding overcommitment. Overall, setting boundaries will improve your productivity and foster a healthier work culture. So you do need to understand your workload. Before setting boundaries, it's important to understand your workload, identify your personal capacity, and how much work you can realistically take on. This will help you manage your time better and prevent burnout. Identify your job responsibilities. You must have a clear understanding of your role and job responsibilities. This will help you to prioritize tasks and focus on what's essential. Set priorities. Setting priorities for what you need to accomplish each day. Prioritize tasks based on their importance, deadlines, and potential impact on the organization. Delegate tasks. Delegate tasks to colleagues who can assist you. This helps lighten your workload and ensures that tasks are completed efficiently. Take time off. Take time off to recharge and rejuvenate. This includes taking breaks throughout the day, ensuring you take all your vacation time, and taking personal or sick days when needed. This also includes taking lunch every day, which is something, again, that I'm guilty of. I would rather just work throughout the whole day, get my work done, leave earlier. And what I found is I get tired, I get burnt out, and I get angry a lot easier when I don't take those breaks in that lunchtime. Communicate often. Communication is essential in setting boundaries. Let colleagues know about your workload, deadlines, and availability. Set limits on what you can do. Identify your personal values and goals, and establish limits to ensure you're not compromised and they're not compromised. Establish clear schedules. Establishing clear schedules that detail when you'll be working, planning, and taking breaks. This helps you to be more effective and efficient with your time. I at work have a to-do and a to-do list. So I will write down the tasks that I need to do in the order that I need to do them, prioritizing them. And then once they're done, instead of completely erasing them off, I go and put them on my to-do list, just to kind of gauge, measure how much time my tasks are taking me during the day. And then I'm able to plan my days a little bit better that way. Respect others. Respect the boundaries of colleagues and clients. This includes following communication protocols, not overworking them, and letting them lead the direction and extent of any engagement. Staying focused on your tasks and avoid distractions. This means turning off notifications, limiting social media access, and having a designated workspace. Be flexible in cases where unexpected events arise. Be open to changing your schedule when necessary and adjust your priorities accordingly. Ask for advice when setting boundaries. Consult with colleagues or seek advice from a mentor to help ensure you're prioritizing the right objectives and benchmarks. Setting boundaries with social media usage. Limit your social media access helps limit distractions at work, which can ultimately result in higher productivity. Monitor your physical and mental health to ensure you're not overextending or ignoring the warning signs of burnout. Avoid overworking, particularly during periods of high stress. Be active in monitoring your workload and ensure that you're not working beyond your capacity. And prioritize self-care. Self-care is important in maintaining overall well-being. Prioritize activities that help you relax and rejuvenate. And that can be something as simple as on your lunch break when it's warm outside, going for a little walk, getting some fresh air, getting a change of scenery. That can do so much wonders for your mental and physical health, especially during times of high stress. So what should you do if someone does cross your boundaries? If someone oversteps a boundary, don't panic. It's inevitable that every now and then situations are going to push up against your boundaries. Think about it. If you never had to enforce your boundaries, why would we need them in the first place? Here's a few tips on how to respond when one of your boundaries is in danger of being crossed. Don't over-justify. You don't need to provide a million reasons for your boundary to exist. Simply stating it is enough. Instead of saying, I can't stay late tonight, I've been really tired and I have plans to go for dinner with my husband, try saying, sorry, I don't work past 5 and I don't have the capacity for overtime right now. When you make an exception, restate your boundary. It's perfectly okay to be flexible with your boundaries when you need, but by restating that boundary will continue in the future. You're communicating that it's just that, an exception. Instead of saying, no problem, I can handle that this weekend, try saying, I don't usually work over the weekend, but I can help out this time since it's urgent. Don't take it personally. Almost always your teammates or colleagues aren't trying to make you feel bad or pressure you by pushing up against your boundaries. They're simply stressed and busy, and their mind is on other things. Don't push back in a confrontational way. If you need to, take a few minutes to calm yourself down before responding. Boundaries aren't a big deal, so simply state yours politely and move on. Instead of saying, as I've stated multiple times, I do not take on extra work on the weekends, try saying, I'm so sorry to hear you're dealing with such a tight deadline, but I don't work on the weekends. Offer alternatives. Coming up with alternate solutions can be a good way to soften the blow when you're setting a boundary. While it's okay to say no, Trying to find a win-win solution shows the other person that you care about their problem. You just don't want to trample on your own boundaries to help them with it. This can work especially well if you're very close to the person asking, or if it's obvious they really need your help. Instead of saying, sorry, I don't have the bandwidth to help you with that, try something like, this week is packed, but things will relax a bit next week. Is there anything I could do to help you then? So we're going to watch this quick little video and then we will talk about burnout.
You got to honor that if you're going to say, I'm putting down the phone between 7 and 9 o'clock tonight, and I'm actually just going to be present with you, you've got to honor it.
That shift of like, I need to get off of this because I'll be spending time with like my fiance or with my family. It popped into my head, oh my gosh, I need to text this person. I forgot I needed to call and get this order fixed. How do you find that shift to just say, you know what, I'm spending time with my family and I'll do it tomorrow, but not like in a procrastinating way?
It's an excellent question. I think if you're present to whether or not you're kind of in the zone of time where it's cool to be fluid, you're kind of with the family, you're also sort of present on your phone, that's cool. If you've decided that because my kids are starting to complain or my fiance is starting to complain that I'm always like this, then you got to honor that if you're going to say, I'm putting down the phone between 7 and 9 o'clock tonight, and I'm actually just going to be present with you, you've got to honor it. So what I will do is I'll just jot a note to myself. So instead of picking up the phone, I'll just jot a note down. And it's only because I have the propensity to work 24/7 because I love what I do and I love responding to people on social and I love seeing all the stuff that's going on. Set a quitting time every single day. Now I usually, I'd say about 65% of the time I honor it. It's not foolproof, but it works the majority of the time. And you've had the experience, right, where you gotta like be at a meeting at the school, or you have to catch a plane, or you've got a doctor's appointment. And have you ever noticed that when you've got an anchor like that, your whole day condenses and you're more productive because you've got this deadline? And that's called Parkinson's law. So Parkinson's law, it's a research-backed fact that when you have work to do, it will expand to the amount of time that you have to do it in. So if you have 20 minutes to make a call, how long will it take you? If you have 2 weeks to make it, how long will it take you? 2 weeks. Correct. So if you, every day, no phone in your room, you set that one priority that matters to you. If you got time to kind of inch it forward just a little bit, great. You've already made progress. You're done for the day. Then you look at your phone. You also set a quitting time right then and there. The majority of days you'll honor it. And that quitting time means, for me, it means I'm not on my phone. And everybody that works for me knows if there's an emergency or if we have to do something, they'll call me. So that helps a lot. Does that answer help you?
Yeah.
How do you incorporate like a brain break? Because getting going is good, but I find myself after an hour or something, I'm absolutely fried. I need to do something different. Instinctually, it's Instagram or Facebook, and then I get in the hole, and it's tough to get out.
Excellent. There is like some pretty interesting research around how long you can focus. Do you guys remember when we took standardized tests, how you were done with the test, you had this massive headache, felt like your brain was pushing? It's because your prefrontal cortex was so gassed. It had to focus for so long that it was tired. The reason why we have habits that get automated is to give your prefrontal cortex a break. Because if your brain had to focus on everything intently 100% of the time, it would not be able to do it. It would blow up in your head. So the reason why it goes back and forth between behaviors that are patterns and behaviors that cause you to be intentional is because your brain needs to take these little breaks. What you're dealing with is you've developed a habit that gets triggered by that feeling. So when your brain starts to feel gassed, that's the trigger. This part of the brain takes over, and what your pattern you're repeating is social media. So the fastest way to stop that is when you catch yourself on social media in that instance, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, to override the pattern, and then get up and take a quick walk. A 3-minute walk, literally even into the kitchen or around the block, or go outside and take a phone call or something. It's remarkable how that will help a lot, okay?
Excellent. I absolutely adore Mel Robbins. So now we're going to look at burnout, which can be a symptom of weak or no boundaries. We're going to start by discussing the difference between stress and burnout. Stress is typically a short-term phenomenon that arises when one perceives a lack of control, over one's work. So it can manifest in multiple days in succession, especially when dealing with a pressing deadline. So there's added stressors. However, once the situation changes, the stress subsides or disappears, then that stress is gone. You go back to kind of that normal living, or your normal, what your normal is. Although long-term exposure to stress can have severe consequences, and one of those consequences can be burnout. So this occurs over an extended period. It can result from being that one's work is meaningless, experiencing a disconnect between one's current tasks and desired career path, or a negative change such as losing a supportive boss or being overwhelmed with an excessive workload. One may find themselves going through the motions instead of being fully engaged. So with burnout, we see a lot of presenteeism and absenteeism. So absenteeism is when you are not at work at all. You're calling in sick. You're just not showing up for work. Where presenteeism is when you are at work, but you're not getting your tasks done. So you may be staring up at the wall for 8 hours or doing anything but what you should be doing with your tasks. So burnout is a state of emotional and mental exhaustion caused by long-term involvement in emotionally demanding situations. And it's a state of fatigue or frustration brought about by devotion to a cause, a way of life, or relationship that failed to produce the expected rewards. So our signs of burnout: having a negative and critical attitude at work, dreading going into work and wanting to leave once you're there, or sitting in your car and having to really pump yourself up to go in for the day. Having low energy and little interest at work. You may have trouble sleeping, being absent from work a lot, having feelings of emptiness, experiencing physical complaints such as headaches, illness, backaches, neck aches, being irritated easily by team members or clients, having thoughts that your work doesn't have meaning or make a difference, pulling away emotionally from your colleagues or clients. Maybe you at one time were very close to your colleagues, were very close to your team or close to your clients, and now all of a sudden you find yourself pulling away from them. Feeling that your work and contributions go unrecognized. So maybe you feel that the work that you're doing, all of the extra work that you're doing, is going unrecognized and unnoticed by your team, your superiors, and your employees. Blaming others for your mistakes. And one of the biggest signs of burnout is you're thinking of quitting your work or changing roles. So the consequences of burnout: Health consequences, exhaustion, anxiety and depression, frequent illnesses. If we're not taking care of ourselves and we're constantly working, our body doesn't have that time to repair. So you may find yourself sick more often. One of the signs of anxiety is, a lot of other health problems. You might have, your blood pressure goes up. You're having panic attacks. You may start having a negative mood at work, and it can also cause physical pain. A lot of us carry our stress in our shoulders and in our neck. So if we are burnt out, we may have a lot of pain in our neck, in our backs, and our shoulders, headaches as well. So we really want to watch out, because these can cause a lot of a host of other illnesses and health consequences as well. So if we are starting to feel these, we do need to look at our workload and see kind of what we can adjust from there. Personal consequences, jobs dissatisfaction. You may just feel that you're going through the motions at work. You're not really enjoying your job as much as you maybe once did. Withdrawing from colleagues and friends and clients. The inability to do your job well. And you can become a drain on company resources. So if you're constantly taking sick time, you're needing medication to help with the burnout, that is also coming from your company resources. If you're missing a lot of work and they have to find other people to cover your shifts, it can be very hard for your company and the resources that they provide as well. Personal consequences, you get irritated by your partner easily. You feel less excited doing things with your partner, and your family, your friends. You feel emotionally withdrawn and unable to connect. And with all of that, you may feel less interested in having sex. If you don't have that energy, if you're irritated with your partner, if you're less excited doing things with them, if you're emotionally withdrawing or unable to connect with them, it can be really hard to have any interest in having those sexual activities with your partner as well. So burnout really does affect every facet of your life. So we really want to try and get those boundaries in place so that we don't have that burnout. And mastering the art of saying no with confidence and professionalism. So I believe everybody was given a workbook. This is just a gift for you. There's fun little quizzes in there. There's tips and tools that I maybe didn't have time to go through today. There's also, I believe it's a list of ways to say no with confidence and professionally. So there's a big list of other ways that you can say no. And by saying no, we are protecting ourselves from that burnout. So be straightforward. No is a sentence. It's a complete sentence. You don't have to explain your no, but if you do, be straightforward with it. Briefly explain yourself, bring up an alternative, and if all else fails, you want to maintain your stance. So when saying no, it's important to avoid ambiguity and clearly communicate your refusal. Instead of saying phrases like maybe or I don't think so, which might leave the door open for future requests, be direct and assertive. For example, I'm afraid I won't be able to take on that additional project at the moment. When you briefly explain yourself, while it's not necessary to provide a lengthy explanation for your refusal, Offering a concise explanation can soften the impact and help the other person understand your decision. Keep the explanation courteous and simple, focusing on the specific reasons that led you to your decision. For instance, I already have a full workload and want to ensure that I can deliver high quality results on my current projects. Bring up an alternative. To show your willingness to help or contribute in some way, it can be effective to present an alternative solution. This demonstrates that you value the relationship and are still open to collaborating, while it might be in a different capacity. For example, you could say, well, I can't take on that project. I'd be happy to provide guidance or support to whoever does. And maintaining your stance. After saying no, it's important to stand firm in your decision. Be aware of the potential consequences of giving in and changing your answer. By consistently asserting your boundaries, you show others that you are in control of your decisions. This helps foster respect and allows you to maintain a healthy balance in your work and personal life. And lastly is just the resources and contributors. So we have some of the information has come from the Art of Friendship, which is a recovery college course created in Calgary that we offer here. We did the Building Better Boundaries, which is just kind of a more informal Building Better Boundaries. It's more for your personal life. That was also created by Recovery College in Calgary that we have an offer at our work as well. And then I did take some information from Indeed.com and Forbes as well to create this this course. So that is the end of the slideshow. I do hope that you're able to take something out of the course. And yeah, if there's any questions, we will hopefully be able to answer them for you.
How do you recommend bringing up boundaries in an interview without harming your chance of being hired?
Ooh, good question. Honestly, I would just ask them kind of what their expectations are. So what are some of your boundaries when it comes to your employees? And open that door for communication. They're going to be more willing to listen to yours if you show interest in what theirs is as well.
So we have another question here for you, Danielle. Oh, a couple of them actually. So from an employer's perspective, what is the line between expectations and boundaries?
I think again, it's just having that open communication. Letting people know what is expected of them while still being able to try and fulfill their boundaries as well.
Good. Another one here. How do you change your boundaries in a setting where you've already established them?
Excellent. So, this is where that flexibility comes in. So there might be something happen. Maybe you are given an assistant, we'll say that. So you have more time to maybe help your other teammates. So you can come and say, now that I have my assistant with me, I am actually able to help out more if anybody needs help. And just being direct and honest. Being able to set those flexible boundaries is really a lot easier to change that boundary when it needs to be changed. Whereas if you set a rigid, never ask me for help ever, because I'm never going to be able to help you, that would be a rigid boundary. So when you set the boundary, if you set it something along the lines of, I am willing to help if I have the time, then if that time becomes available, then you're able to, say, I do have more time now. I am ready and willing and able to help you.